Matthew 24:22 talks about the days being shortened, meaning in the Great Tribulation. Because if you back up to verse 21, that's what Jesus is talking about. For at that time there will be great tribulation, unmatched from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be seen again, right? And then he goes on to say, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh will be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened, and they are. Scientifically, science has proven that the days are actually physically shorter right now. But anyway, there's many reasons that I bring this particular scripture up. And, the from the mRNA shots to, them spraying us with things constantly, right? To make us ill, keep us ill. Of course, they say it's to prevent climate change. But anyway, guess what else they're going to start spraying on us? Or maybe already are, and we just haven't been told yet. As the bioterror continues in the skies, how global elites plan to inject fungal spores into our atmosphere to cause perpetual respiratory infections. The bioterror blueprint is hiding in plain sight. Wow. And they even talk about in this study how they need to get politicians and religious leaders on board in order to convince certain societies that this is necessary. I mean, it's unbelievable. This is bioterror. This is just more depopulation nonsense. But these scientists are absolutely insane. So we'll just go on and get into it like we always do. So what aren't they telling you indeed? So a peer-reviewed paper published in October of 2024 has laid out a detailed blueprint for what can only be described as mass atmospheric experimentation on an unsuspecting global population. Yeah, much like they're doing right now. Well, the paper, titled Atmospheric Fungal Spore Injection, a promising breakthrough for challenging the impacts of climate change through cloud seeding and weather modification. It openly advocates for the deliberate injection of fungal spores into the atmosphere as a geoengineering tool. This is not science fiction. This is a documented plan to disperse biological agents across the skies using the same technology that has already blanketed communities with silver iodide and aluminum nanoparticles for decades. The climate change narrative is being weaponized to justify what amounts to biological warfare against the planet and its inhabitants, all without informed consent, without adequate safety studies, and without any democratic oversight. Well, they don't do it now. Why would they do it in the future? So here are some key points. Researchers propose using fungal spores as ice nucleating particles for cloud seeding and weather modification. The paper openly acknowledges health risks, including respiratory problems for individuals with allergies, asthma, or compromised immune systems. Yeah, they're just, they're useless anyway, so let's just kill them off. I mean, that's basically what they're saying here without actually saying it. Delivery methods include aircraft, drones, rockets, and ground-based generators. The technology is already deployed worldwide in countries including China, the United States, Australia, and Saudi Arabia. Yeah, and so who's to say they're not using it now, these fungal spores? I noticed I started coughing and having more allergy issues lately. How about you guys? I've definitely noticed a difference over the past few weeks. So now here comes this study, right? And like I said, who's to say they're not already doing this in real time? Anyway, silver iodide accumulation in the environment already affects water quality and soil microbial diversity. The paper admits that effects on the ecological systems are unknown and potentially vary by the ecosystem. Fungal spores can be phytopathogenic, potentially harming agricultural crops. Now, who needs those? We're going to be transhuman, right? I mean, come on. The plan reveals that religious and political leaders will be needed to convince skeptical societies. Yeah, much like they did for the masking and the shots, right? So the terror blueprint hiding in plain sight. This paper, published in the open access journal, IG Min Research, describes in explicit detail how to cultivate fungal spores in indoor facilities, equip them with air blowers and suction systems, and launch them through plumbing vents into the lower atmosphere. The proposed system would involve macro-scale indoor fungal cultivation with cultivation room equipped with an air blower, air sucking and generating machines, The spores would be dispersed through a long plumber vent on the roof of the cultivation house and into the air. I'm sure Bill Gates probably already has these systems being built or set up and ready to go right now. But this is bioterror dressed in academic robes. The researchers admit that injecting large quantities of fungal spores into the atmosphere could pose health risk, particularly for individuals with allergies like myself, asthma, COPD, or compromised immune systems because most fungal species are opportunistic. So they know this and they're going to do it anyway. You see how sick these people are. They acknowledge that dispersing spores at lower atmospheric levels may result in reducing air quality at the boundary layer, compromising the respiratory well-being of humans and animals. Yet they proceed to advocate for exactly this course of action. Of course they do. They just got done with the biggest jab experiment in the history of humankind 6 years ago. And they're still doing it. So this paper identifies specific fungal classes with ice nucleating ability, including, I'm not going to try and pronounce all these different ones. You guys can look them up yourselves. But the species, like these right here, including penicillin, and various mushroom spores, are already confirmed among the prominent biological ice nucleating particles in the upper atmosphere. So they'll deploy properly in the upper atmosphere, is what they're really saying. The researchers want to dramatically increase their concentration through deliberate release. The Terra network already in place. Cloud seeding is not a hypothetical future technology because it's happening right now, and it's been happening for decades. And it's on a massive scale. The paper documents that China was investing $100 million per year in cloud seeding before the 2008 Olympics. The United States applies cloud seeding to mitigate hurricanes, increase the amount of snowfall at its hydropower dams by more than twofold per year, and avoid fog at airports. So you see, this tells you right here, increase the amount of snowfall at its hydropower dams by more than twofold a year. Well, guess what they didn't do then? They didn't do any cloud seeding because Colorado had its lowest snow cover for the Colorado River in the mountains above the Colorado River in history. Hardly any snow cover at all, so they had hardly any runoff. And now they're talking about water shortages throughout the southwestern United States this year. They're just not telling you about it in the mainstream media. So you can tell that they did not do any cloud seeding in the Southwest last winter because there was hardly any snowfall in the mountains. But countries, including Australia, France, Greece, India, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey, are all conducting cloud seeding operations. Yes, and sometimes they go awry and go wrong, like in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and they end up with massive floods in different cities. But the delivery mechanisms read like a military arsenal. Aircraft deployment, drone-based dispersal, rocket-based injection, automated high-output ground seeding systems, and ground-based generators. Yeah, because we're at war with our militaries around the world, if in case you weren't aware. They were the ones that came up with the COVID jabs. They were the ones that came up with Operation Warp Speed. Trump just took the credit for it, but they're the ones that came up with it years ago, years before they ever came out with the jabs. Years in the planning stages. And in November 2009, the Beijing Weather Modification Bureau fired 186 doses of silver iodide into the air to prompt precipitation, causing an extra 16 million cubic meters of snow to fall in the city. Now the goal is to replace silver iodide with fungal spores, with which the researchers claim are more biocompatible and biodegradable. More deadly is what they should say. But biocompatible for whom? The paper itself warns that high concentrations of fungal spores would exacerbate respiratory problems. The long-term exposure risk would need to be thoroughly evaluated. Yeah, just like they did with the jabs, right? They knew what those were going to do. And they know what this is going to do. And yet they're going to do it anyway. And people still think the government gives a rip about them, that it's their friend. And it's the furthest thing from the truth. Remember the Georgia Guidestones, guys. They blew them up in 2022, but they said they want the population of the world down to no more than 500 million. Go look it up before they start gaslighting everybody and telling you that they didn't exist. But the researchers acknowledge that some traditional human societies may see these operations as intervening with nature, which can cause severe divine responses such as floods, droughts, and famine. But they're going to do it anyway. They propose using religious leaders along with political leaders, the ones that they can bribe, right, to convince such societies. This isn't science, it's a depopulation agenda, and any religious influence that backs these projects should hold no spiritual authority. No, they should all be dethroned. But the paper also admits that introducing fungal spores into environments where they're not naturally abundant could have unintended consequences for ecosystems. Some spores can be phytopathogenic to specific flora, meaning they could destroy crops. The consequences of stratospheric aerosol injection on ecological systems are described as unknown and potentially vary by ecosystem. Same with the jabs. This recklessness, masquerading as innovation, that's what it is. The climate change narrative has become the perfect cover for mass atmospheric experimentation. The public has no say. There are no international treaties governing this technology. As the paper itself concludes, international, federal, and state law failed to adequately address issues related to re-emerging and useful cloud seeding augmentation technologies. The time to stop this madness is now, before the skies become a more expansive biological experiment and our lungs and sinuses become the laboratory for perpetual respiratory infections. Yes. And I'll bet you anything that Big Pharma has jabs lined up to counteract this stuff right now. Or they're working on them. It doesn't really matter. The jabs will just finish the job and kill you off. I mean, these people just worship and love death. And like Jesus said, if these days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, meaning people like you and I who believe in Jesus Christ and are waiting for his return, oh Lord, please return soon. That we're the elect. And praise God, I believe he is returning very soon. Because with stuff like this happening, he has to. Or there will simply be nobody left to save. And that's it for now. Don't forget, don'tspeaknews.com is home base for all that we do. And I have little tabs up here in the top of the website to help you navigate things. And so some of you were saying it's hard to find a contact for me. Well, it's right here. Right here. Subscribe, contact Johnny. All you have to do is click on that. And then to contact me, Don't Speak News at Proton Mail is the address. So there you go. And if you want to subscribe to the website, so every time I put up a new post, you are notified. Type in your email here, click on subscribe, and you're in. Then you'll be notified every time I put up something new. Channel support, that's right here. We are listener supported only, and we're definitely in need of that, always. So all the links to support us are right here, and we thank you very much for that. As I always say, without you guys, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be able to stick around. Rumble, BitChute, Telegram, all the links to find us around the internet are right here. Click on that, and there are those links. And that'll be it for now. God bless, take care. Johnny Storm, Don't Speak News.